Afrimat supplies building materials to the building and construction industries and also clay to the steel industry.
You know, another smaller company, fairly new on the market for about a decade or so. The management team under Andries van Heerden done a tremendous job. Lots of bolt-on acquisitions, really in a very difficult neighborhood, building supply industry. Same industry we were talking about with PPC earlier. This one keeps on shining.
And we're looking at a market cap here of 2.9 billion rand, PE ratio of 13.7, dividend yield of 2.6%. Can we get the graph up first before we start the conversation?
Look, it has slipped there at the end, it must be said, but that's a very impressive performance through, you know, not very sparkling markets always in the prior period.
Have you taken cognizance of Afrimat?
Yes, it's a solid company. You can't really ignore that performance, especially when you think about the challenging environment in which it operates. In terms of revenue growth, earnings per share growth, everything has been solid across the board for a couple of years now. We've seen revenue growth plateau a little bit, but they've been able to extract efficiencies out of those businesses. Good track record of solid acquisitions, bedding them down. It's a very good business.
And you mentioned Andries van Heerden at the helm and his solid leadership.
And that's a lot. When you say a company acquires well, what that means is you don't hear about it afterwards. No lawsuits, no arguments, no petulant disasters, no tantrums, and that can happen. So that's
you
a good
actually
sign.
don't want to make headlines with
the less
the
headlines,
deal
the
flow.
better. The core of the business is like the Prima and Lancaster, which is, you know, quarrying, providing ready-made, ready-mix type products. Also the Dolomite, which is into the steel industry. They bought Infrasource, which has also got businesses of that nature. So the Clinker Group they acquired at some point along the way as well. So you can't fault them. The market, though, liked the rising earnings, and as though the earnings have continued this last set, maybe a little bit more muted than people thought, and maybe it was just a market context where people were factoring too much good news into the future, and that's why it sort of settled down a bit.
Perhaps the same thing that has impacted cash build negatively.
Exactly. To some extent, in a market like this, you know, it's the marginal buyer that sets the price.
Chantal, anything to add before we call it?
One thing that I do like about this company is the fact that it pays a reasonable dividend. It's only about a 30% payout, but it is very good for a company of this relative size and with this kind of growth trajectory to just give a little back to shareholders. We know they've also been involved in a share buyback program, which is also supportive of the share price. And that should be a good thing for shareholders going forward.
You're going to call it hot? It sounds as though you've got a lot of momentum behind this one.
Well, yes, it's a difficult one, but this recent little downturn may be an opportunity to get into a solid growth story.
Hot. Paul?
Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. I was going to go with tough context until Chantal just convinced me there, so let's give them the benefit.
Well done for convincing him, Chantal.